So today's video is going to be just a short one because this is just a study that I'm doing for some larger paintings. I'm drawing cuckoo chicks this time around. And so what I'm showing you here is that I'm about to transfer my line drawing. I'm using this transfer paper, Serral transfer paper. It's like a tissue paper that's got graphite all over the back of it, and I can put it graphite side down on my watercolor paper and then put my line drawing that I've done on tracing paper right over the top of that. I stick everything down using just blue painter's tape because it's cheap, and if my paper is high quality enough and I'm careful, I can pull the painter's tape off without ruining my paper. I can just use any old pen to draw over the top of my original drawing in order to transfer this. As long as it's got a sharp point, a ballpoint pen, it's fine. So while I'm working on this painting, I wanted to talk a little bit about the names that I use for myself that you've probably heard me use in some of the other videos. So I am a domestic, private, closed record adoptee, and it's most likely that unless you're also an adoptee, you have no idea what any of that means. And so I wanted to explain a little bit about what those descriptors mean. So I am a domestic adoptee, and what that means is that I was born in the country that I was adopted in. So I was born in the US and I was adopted in the US. Other adoptees, in fact, what's much more common these days is that other adoptees are international adoptees. That's just like how it sounds. That's people that were born in another country and brought here in order to be adopted. This is a kneaded rubber eraser that I'm showing you here. I just use it, I roll it over the graphite in order to pull up a lot of the pencil markings before I get started painting. So that's domestic. I'm also a private adoption adoptee, which means that I was not adopted through foster care. I was in foster care. They had to legally put me in foster care for 1 month in order to allow my mother to change her mind. Basically, it gave the agency plausible deniability. They could say from that point on that we gave her time to decide that she wanted to keep her child, but she didn't. But that foster care was run through the private adoption agency that I was adopted out of. The authorities didn't remove me from my mother. She volunteered to put me up for adoption. So I'm a closed record adoptee. That means that at the time that my adoption decree was finalized, the court sealed all of my records, including all of my vital records, my birth certificate, everything were sealed legally so that no one has access to them, especially not me. I'm from the state of California. Every state has different laws governing adoption, but California has particularly draconian ones. If the adoption was old enough, when they say sealed records, they mean literally sealed with wax, and so that you can see whether the wax was ever broken, tampered with in any way. Once my adoption was finalized and my original birth certificate was sealed away, then an entirely new birth certificate was issued for me with my adoptive parents listed as if they were the ones who I was born to. And my birth mother's name and my birth father's name were all removed from the birth certificate. There are just blank spaces on my birth certificate for where I was born, what hospital I was born in. I have two birth certificates, my original birth certificate with my birth mother's name and my amended birth certificate with my adoptive parents' names. And I will never get to see my original birth certificate. Closed adoptions still exist. That's in fact what most international adoptions are. Sometimes adoptions are closed for the safety of the child, but more often I suspect they are closed because the adoptive parents are afraid of their adoptive child knowing too much about themselves and finding their biological parents. Now, open adoptions are much more commonly done. An open adoption means that the adoptive family knows one or both of the biological parents. The adoptive parents and the biological parents can come to an agreement that keeps the adoptive parents in the child's life in some way. They can exchange cards, maybe, or even come to holidays or birthday parties, that sort of thing. There is nothing that makes that a legally binding contract, though. Lots of times these days, a biological mother will go into an open adoption thinking that that means she will always be involved in her child's life, and it's not legally binding. It's just an agreement between the adoptive family and the biological mother, and the adoptive family can change their mind at any point and just pick up and move and cut off all contact at that point with the birth mother. You'll also sometimes hear me describe myself as an adoptee who is in reunion or an adoptee who is in secondary rejection, because I'm both of those things. I am in reunion with my biological father and my family on that side. I am in secondary rejection with my biological mother, meaning that I've located her, but she doesn't wish to have any contact with or to speak to me. And I'm nearly done here. The cuckoo is a brood parasite, meaning that it lays its eggs in the nests of other bird species and they raise the chick as if it's their own. So this is an English sparrow feeding a cuckoo chick. It's interesting that the adoptive parents, bird parents, will continue to feed the cuckoo's chick and accept it as their own, even when it grows so big that it completely dwarfs them.